Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Natsu was raised by Achnologia Part 1. Before I start, please do support for more awesome content and subscribe my channel and like this video. Go support and follow the Blackhatred for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story, link in the description. Let's start this video. This is a fairy tale. Asked with uncertainty, it's quite small. The short man Makarov deflated Natsu, he said, calmly regaining his composure. Fairy tale is more than just a group of people with magical power. We are a family, and we care for each other, more than most guilds would. Natsu glanced at his family. I know, Natsu said, unless you are family with a person whose presence brings death. Natsu walked through the guild doors, leaving a baffled Makarov outside. People were being flung around the hall from a battle between a red-haired and white-haired girl. Some people paused to look at him, but none dared to separate the two girls. Natsu simply walked between them to the bar. They rushed towards each other yelling insults, not noticing the boy in their way. Whack. The girls stared shocked at a little kid just blocked their punches. Natsu dropped their fists and continued to the bar. The two stared after him. What's your problem? A boy with black hair asked Natsu to ignore him, waiting for the old man to stop gawking. I'm talking to you, the boy said louder. Gray, don't be so mean. A girl with white hair, much like the other ones. They must be related, Natsu thought, glancing at a large muscular boy with the same color hair. But Lysanda, he can't just walked in here without a word. Stop Urza's and Mira Jane's fight, then ignore me. Ignore me. Gray emphasized he was defending himself. Lysanda screamed back. Other members shook their heads at her argument. Lysanda turned to Natsu, glaring at the mages whispering about him. Excuse me, Natsu, she said politely. Could we possibly become friends? The guild was silent. Mages. In shock, she didn't even know the boy didn't seem very nice, they couldn't trust him. Natsu frowned whenever he made a friend there. He sighed. Whatever, he replied, might as well. She beamed. See everyone, you just need to welcome him. Urza and Mira peered at them. He seems off somehow, Mira stated. There's no way that child stopped both of our attacks, Urza concluded. Makarov cleared his throat, walking towards the group of children. Natsu, where would you like your guild mark, and what color? He asked what he's joining. Gray yelled, made no notion of being insulted. He pointed to his shoulder. Black, please. Makarov pressed the stamp on the area. Welcome to Fairy Tale. No one cheered. Lysanda, are you sure you don't want me to come with you? Questioned, not wanting a repeat of all those years before. Lysanda sighed. Have some faith, I've got Mirani and Elfnai San with me. Natsu looked over his shoulder at the glaring mages behind him. Fine, he said, just be careful. Lysanda smirked. Oh, worried for little old me, she teased, raised an eyebrow. You are delusional. He deadpanned. She pouted. I'll see you in a few days, he nodded. She turned and walked to her siblings, waved to her. She's lived 3 years being my friend, she'll be fine, assured himself. I should go tell Happy, he concluded, walking off. You know what's gonna happen? What did you say? Natsu asked. You heard me, she's dead. I saw her body disappear before my own eyes. Mira yelled, crying. Elfman stayed silent, weeping beside her. Why, tell him he won't care. A lone mage yelled. Happy sniffed from atop the head. What does dead mean? Where's Lysanda? Hesitated. Lysanda won't be returning to us, he replied emotionlessly. The mage that had insulted him threw a glass at his head effortlessly, dogged, and turned to leave. He stopped at the door, turning his head to look at Mira from the corner of his eye. Who killed her? Mira didn't answer. I did, an Elfman suddenly interject. I see, Natsu whispered coldly, leaving with Happy sobbing on his head. 2 hours later. It was now raining heavily, shielded happily with his umbrella, staring down at the gravestone he made outside of a small hut. The hut Lysanda made while Happy was in his egg. He looked down at his moist attire. Black sandals, she hated those. Black knee-length puff pants, she detested those. Black vest with blue trimmings, she loved that, and his trademark black giant scale scarf with blue trimmings. Only she and Happy knew his secret, the others thought he was raised by Ignell. Everything he wore was black, even his umbrella was black, appropriate for a funeral at least. Happy fluttered into the hut, curled into a ball, and fell asleep. He dropped the umbrella and stared into the gray sky. Rain covering his tears, he fell to his knees and roared deep and powerful, hating the world. Stupid cheap old man, Lucy grumbled under her breath, holding a silver key. 1,000 jewels for this key, a minor even, she sighed, then smiled. Can't wait to make a contract with him. She made her way to town center. Once there, she saw a crowd of females cheering. Salamander Sama, one screeched. Ha, Lucy said, Salamander's here. She pushed her way through the crowd. She met eyes with a purple-haired man donning a dark purple cape, white shirt, red pants, and, I'm going to say, brown boots. As soon as she looked at him, her heart started to beat faster. She felt flustered. What is this, love? Her eyes turned to hearts when the man winked at her. She inched closer, reaching out to touch him. Salamander was suddenly thrown to the ground, the heart shattered, leaving her blinking. The pink-haired boy stood over a salamander, black shirt, black shorts, black boots, and a black scale-like scarf with blue swirls. Goth, she thought. Lucy stared at his hair. Gay. A blue cat landed on the boy's head. Natsu. I think you kicked him too hard. Who do you think you are? A girl yelled, how dare you kick a salamander, Sama. Another screeched. Natsu ignored them and nudged the man below him with his foot. Natsu turned to the girls that were glaring at him. You people are idiots. This man here is Bora of prominence. I'm salamander. All the girls including Lucy said. What, but you dyed your hair pink? Salamander can't be gay, a girl exclaimed. Natsu rolled his eyes. I'm not gay and I didn't dye my hair. I was born with it. Salmon-colored Bora that started to stir. Natsu stomped on his head. Someone called the Rune Knights. He commanded. No one in particular. The blue cat on his head yawned. I still think you hit him too hard. Natsu snorted and walked off. Lucy glanced at the Bora then walked after the salamander. Oh no, salamander-san, oh my god, I used a Japanese word. She asked to ignore her. She huffed. Excuse me, she said loudly. No response. Will you stop walking and listen to me? She yelled. He continued to walk and she sighed. Could you at least send me in the direction of a fairy tale? She asked. If I'm not a map, he deadpanned. Lucy gave up. The man and cat walked off and soon the Rune Knights arrived. They took Bora away and told Lucy where to find fairy tale. Obvious displeasure in their voices. Finally she beamed. No, I can join fairy tale. She ran off to catch a train, happy to be close to her goal. Natsu sat by the window by himself as usual. The guild members chattered uneasily around him. Eventually a brawl started and Natsu was forgotten. Happy sat by the bar next to a drunken Makarov watching the fight and eating a random fish. Lucy stared in shock at Levi, her new best friend. Natsu is really that bad? She exclaimed. Levi nodded when he found out she died. All he did was walk away. Lucy and her companion glared at Natsu. They didn't know he could hear them. No one did. No one asked. Loki suddenly burst through the doors. His glasses were lopsided and his clothes sticky from sweat. Her back was all he said. Everyone excluding Natsu and Lucy froze. Lucy was confused. What's whose back? She asked. Elfman was suddenly in her face, fear in his eyes. Urza Scarlet, the demon lady man. What was that? A voice came to the door. Like rusty gears, everyone turned their heads. Elfman laid unconscious on the ground. After about 15 minutes of everyone getting chewed out for their habits, though she didn't notice Natsu, Urza greeted Lucy. It's good that we have a new member, she said. By the way, where's Gray? She continued. That rhymes, Happy announced. Gray tried to walk away, but Urza caught him. Gray, I need your help, she said. Somebody spit their drink out, getting another person wet. Why don't you, Lucy, and I create a team for that matter, she added. Take Natsu with you, Makarov commanded in his drunk haze. Before Gray could protest, Urza was staring into Makarov's eyes. Master, you are drunk, and speaking of ludicrous things, Makarov seemed to sober up immediately. I understand that you don't take well to Natsu, but that's no reason for you all to shun him. He will join your team and you will welcome him. Natsu suddenly appeared next to them. Nobody knew he had moved. What of my circumstances? He asked. The others were confused. Makarov cites you can take separate missions when they are on break. Natsu nodded and returned to his spot at the window. The three other team members huffed. Well, I heard Eisenwald is trying something and we need to stop him, Urza grumbled. They dispersed to separate groups and another brawl started. Makarov stared at Natsu. This may be the strongest or most dysfunctional team ever, maybe both, he thought. Mira quietly polished glass after glass, angry, thinking that such a horrible person shouldn't have benefits. Lucy, Gray and Urza stared intently at Natsu. He stared out of the window, a faraway look in his eyes. He clearly wasn't feeling too well when they arrived, but now he seemed frozen, oblivious to the outside world. Happy lay next to him, clearly used to the behavior. Some of the waiters on the train seemed to recognize him, but when they saw the other mages they would quickly walk away. Bored of observing him, Urza began to explain the situation. On my travels, I came across a group of people talking about stealing something called a lullaby, as if he'd been forcing himself to stay awake. Natsu flopped backwards onto his chair. Happy flew out from under him, landing on his stomach. Coughing, Urza continued. They were working for the man Erigor, master of the Eisenwald Guild. Gray and Lucy froze. You mean Shinigami Erigor, they said simultaneously. Urza nodded. He was kicked out of the legal guild league for taking assassination requests. He now runs a dark guild. Lucy started sweating. Urza, Gray, Happy and Lucy got off. They are definitely plotting something, Gray. We have to march into and take the lullaby from them. Do you even know where it is? Lucy groaned. They came into this town, Ezra explained to her. Lucy sighed, then looked around. Where's Natsu? The group froze. Son of a. Natsu groaned. I hate trains, he told himself. Someone approached him. If this seat was taken. The man asked Natsu to shake his head as the man sat across from him. Oh, you're from Fairy Tale Illegal Guild, the man smiled. I envy you. That bastard, Gray yelled. He probably left us to fight ourselves. Urza turned to one of the workers. Stop the train, she ordered him. Lucy, Happy, Gray, and the man sweat dropped. I'm sorry, I can't do that, the man replied. Behind him was the lever to stop the train. Happy, she yelled. The cat said, pulling it. Bells began to ring, and the citizens wondered if there was an accident. "Let's go Gray," and say the worker was yelling, but they ignored him. "I'm gonna smack some sense into him." Urza nodded. "Come on," she said. Meanwhile, "There are so many cute girls in Fairy Tail, but none in my guild, so I envy you," the strange man told Natsu. Natsu sat up but didn't respond. He wasn't friends with those people, so he didn't have anything to say. "One last thing," the man said, raising his foot. "Don't ignore me just because I'm from a dark guild, that's rude." The unfortunate man smashed his foot into Natsu's face. They sat for a while and nothing happened, his foot still in the Dragon Slayer's face. The man pushed a bit harder. "Oh, you deaf or something?" The man twirled in the air and landed on his face. Natsu's hand raised a calm expression on his face. He stared at the man before him when the train suddenly lurched forward. "Bastard," the man yelled, his bag fell forward and a strange-looking flute flew out. It was brown, but the head had 3 ominous purple eyes, and it was smiling. "Ah, the lullaby," Natsu thought. The man had rolled across the floor, but shakily stood up, blood streaming from his nose. The intercom buzzed. "The emergency stop was a false report, but we will be leaving shortly. Sorry for the inconvenience," it clicked of. "Damn," Natsu said, "I better get out of here." The train started again, and he started to sway slightly. "I won't let you," the angry man screamed, looking deranged. Natsu ignored him and jumped from the window. "Nobody picks a fight with," was what Natsu heard before he was hurtling through the air. "Kageyama," Erigor said with a smirk. Behind him, the passengers of the train and the engineers were being pushed off to buy the other dark mages. "Seems you did your job," the others cheered. "The mass murder magic lullaby that puts a curse on anybody who hears its melody." They all laughed and let the show begin. "What the hell is wrong with you?" Gray yelled. Urza glared at Natsu's sword in hand. "What are you talking about?" "You left me on the train," he said, arms folded. They paused. "Well, why you didn't get off?" Lucy added. "Because I wasn't feeling well. You people stink." He's embarrassed about his motion sickness. "They will find out soon." "Gray, whatever." Natsu turned to Urza. "The lullaby is on that train for your information." "What?" she yelled. "The cursed flute, one of Xeris' creations." "I guess I overestimated your knowledge," Natsu replied sarcastically. She growled and turned back to the magic-powered go-kart. Natsu stood idly to the side, happily munching a fish beside him. Lucy glanced at him. "Are you coming?" Natsu unfolded his arms. "No, I'll run," Gray snorted, hanging from the window. "Yeah, sure. Time skip. He beat us here. I can't believe he's not human." The three stared at Natsu talking to an engineer, happy resting on his head. He noticed them and walked over. "They took the train," he said, and prepared to run again, but Urza quickly pulled him into the car and they took off. Natsu lay against the window looking angry and miserable as they headed off in silence. In the distance, the team could see smoke rising from the station. "They must be causing chaos over there," Urza said. Happy yawned. "I need some fish," he mumbled. Natsu rolled his head to see the destruction. Citizens were in panic, engineers trying to calm them down. Ounce, they stopped. Natsu flopped out of the cart. Urza had been driving too fast. Crazy woman, he thought to himself. They walked through the crowded and attempted to enter the building. "Stop, you can't go in," a guard yelled. Urza knocked him out, earning a sweat drop from Lucy. They entered, walking down the passage. "Oh, look what the cat dragged," in a cruel voice spoke out. Before them was a mass of dark mages, and floating above them was the infamous Erigor. "My teacher would hate that sentence." The other mages laughed. "Take care of them while I play with this flute." Erigor finished flying away. "He's escaping," Lucy screamed just as the half-man exited the window. Natsu was already after him when Urza sent Gray as well. One mage used some sort of shadow-like magic to fly after them, and Kageyama followed suit, cursing that Sakura head. He disappeared through the floor. The remainder thought, what can two girls do? They sure are hot, though maybe we could sell them off. We would have to break them in first, though. A new round of laughs went around. Despicable, Urza commented. She equipped a sword and easily began to slash through her enemies. Equipping, it's a word, over and over to counter different attacks. Lucy stood amazed off to the side. Urza glanced at her remaining offenders re-equipping, and she yelled at the knight, too lazy to describe it. "Wait," one fat man said. "Isn't she?" Many mages were slashed to the ground. "The strongest woman in Fairy Tail is another down." Urza the Titania. The fat man was now the last one standing. He quickly ran away, and Urza ordered Lucy to follow. Natsu came to a double path, Gray beside him, ignoring each other, and they headed down opposite ways. "He must be in the broadcasting room," Gray concluded, breaking down a door. Nobody was inside. Black tendrils prepared to impale Gray, but he dodged. "That looks like I wasn't completely off," Gray snickered. The man before him smiled incredulously. "Your instincts are good, you'll be a nuisance to our plan." Urza walked out of the building towards the crowd, and she snatched a, I don't know what it's called, a blowhorn maybe, from one of the guards. "Citizens," she yelled, "if you value your lives you will evacuate immediately. A dark mage is preparing a magical instrument that will kill you all." The citizens froze for a moment, then turned and ran away. "Was that really necessary?" an engineer asked worriedly. "Yes, and I suggest that you leave as well." We want to avoid all casualties, Urza replied. The guard and engineer instantly turned and ran off. She watched the citizens leave when suddenly something began to materialize in behind her. I am so tired. Bray dodged the incoming tendrils as his opponent laughed. The black strips destroyed the broadcasting equipment. What Gray thought in confusion. He created a cylinder of ice to block the new round of assaulting strips. What's your real plan? Gray asked, still behind the cylinder. The other man smirked. The wind wall keeping you here should be up now, he said, looking around. What? Gray yelled. Urza yelled as she flew through the barrier, cruel laughter coming from the other side. Erigor yelled in anger as the shadow disappeared. Gray kicked his opponent, sending the man flying. We won't let you hurt our masters, the ice mage yelled. A stream of tendrils cut along him. Gritting his teeth, he rushed forward, placing a hand on the dark mage's face, freezing him. You'll regret targeting our parents, was all he said. Urza poked one of the fallen mages. We don't know how to nullify the spell, he said for the 5th time. Urza was about to punch him when Gray jumped down next to her. Where's Natsu? She asked. Who cares, rude, he said quickly. But listen, Erigor is planning to use the lullaby against the guild masters, and we can't escape because Urza put up a hand to stop him. I know, Gray, she said. But wait until that man called Cage Urza began, he might be able to get rid of the spell. Nodding to each other, they both ran off to look for him. The fat man that Lucy was chasing appeared in a pillar and said what to do. Oh no, Lucy mumbled. What will Urza say if she finds out we lost that guy? Happy began to sweat. Let's keep searching, Lucy, he said. She nodded nervously. Why yes, can we find him? Don't say it like a question. Skip. Natsu felt something hit the back of his head. He turned around and Kageyama lay stunned to the fact that his attack had no effect. He quickly regained his composure. By Statingi, I've got a pretty good idea of how your magic works. You increase your destructive power by flaming part of your body. Natsu ignored him and looked around. Where is Erigor? He asked Kageyama. Maybe I'll tell you if you defeat me. He found himself flying from his original spot into the wall. He's fast, Cage thought, placing a hand on the ground. Orchid Shadow, he yelled. Shadow snakes rushed out at Natsu. With fire on his hand, he easily disposed of them. Cage began to sweat. Natsu punched the poor man across the room, fist still aflame. The impact caused a large explosion. Cage lay twitching on the floor. Natsu stepped up to him, crouching down, scarf somehow fluttering around in the air. Natsu stared at the man, a menacing look in his eyes. Now you are going to tell me your plans. Natsu? Urza and Gray yelled as they saw the mage standing over a terrified Cage. Stop. We need him. Natsu stood up. I've gotten a lot of info from him. Urza pushed him aside. We don't need you, she said rudely. She pointed a sword at the already scared Cage and nullified the wall, she ordered. Cage opened his mouth to say something when he coughed blood and fell forward with a sword in his back, which Urza yelled. The fat man held a hand out from behind and gulped. Gray ran towards Urza. An image filled Natsu's mind, a man helping him and his partner slicing through his head. Hatred filled his heart as he also walked forward. The fat man tried to disappear. Without using fire, Natsu punched a hole through the wall, grabbing him. Lucy came up behind them. She said. I'm Skip. We can't penetrate this, Gray said to Lucy. That's why we need Kageyama. Natsu stood in front of the barrier, then placed his hand on it. Urza quickly pulled him away. Idiots trying to get yourself killed. Natsu ignored her and jumped into it. He twisted to follow the flow and disappeared. He dropped back down from above. That didn't work, he said. Not a single scratch on his body. What? How? They all looked up. I don't want to know. I just remembered something, Happy yelled randomly. Lucy, you're a celestial mage, right? She nodded. Happy reached into his bandana and pulled out a silver key. Where did you get this? She asked. I'm a cat, Happy answered. Everyone not. Natsu sweat dropped. She called forth a spirit and a beautiful maid with pink hair appeared. How may I serve you, princess? She asked. Oh okay, Virgo, Lucy began. I don't have time to make a contract, but do you think you maybe could get us out of here? She asked, gesturing to the spinning wall behind her. As you wish, Princess. Virgo suddenly dived into the ground. They blinked at her, slightly surprised. Natsu picked up Cage, who was just waking up. What are you doing, Gray? Have I been spelling his name wrong? Sneered. This guy is a victim of betrayal, Natsu replied, as if that explained it all. They climbed into the hole only to experience the high levels of wind outside. Natsu's scar fluttered wildly, and this was just when Lucy noticed it. Black with blue swirls all over is very nice, she thought. Natsu looked at his damaged black boots. I need to get some new ones, he thought. Hey, you'll never catch him now, Cage whispered. We've won. Urza ignored him and looked around. Where's Happy and Natsu? Erigor smiled. I can see the town now. Behind him he heard something. Natsu was flying high speed towards him, happily clinging fiercely to his head, wings open. The wind mage's eyes widened. Max speed. The cat yelled, propelling Natsu to smack Erigor in the face. The mage fell into the rails below him. Happy fluttered into Natsu's arms and couldn't fly anymore. The cat mumbled. Natsu smiled, what, softly at the cat. That's okay, Happy rest for now. Natsu put Happy down and turned to who was glaring intensely at him. A squirt of Natsu rushed at full speed, punching him hard in the gut. He followed, saying fire dragon's claw, swiping downwards with his foot. He went for another punch but dodged, flying up high. Stormbringer, he yelled. A stream of swirling wind rained down on Natsu. He flew out the top but was uninjured. Erigor attempted to slash him with his scythe. Natsu grasped it with his hand, a look of shock crossed Rigor's face. Flame dragon's roar, a dangerously large stream of fire shot out from Natsu's. Erigor was unable to dodge and fell to the ground. Natsu raised an eyebrow. I'm not even using full power, Gray could have blocked that. Shakily rose back into the air. He's just toying with me. He thought time for this flight. A pay maelstrom, he said sinisterly, stretching his arms out. Wind wrapped around him like a cloak. It looks like you're wearing a dress, Natsu stated. Now conscious. Happy laughed. Chatty today, aren't you? Natsu shrugged, trying to pass the time. The tick mark formed on Erigor's head. Natsu attempted to punch him with a flaming fist, but his fire died out. Oh, Natsu said, waving his hand. Erigor laughed. Fire cannot beat wind, I'll just put you out. The wind began to pick up and Natsu found himself having to lean forward in order to stay upright. Erigor yelled as slashes of wind propelled towards the fire mage. They hit him but had no effect. Imeriparum, he screamed. An explosion racked the railroad tracks. Natsu lay on his face. That was unexpected, he thought to himself. A small bruise was forming on his head. How are you alive? Erigor asked, shaking. Natsu ignored him. Oh well, this is getting boring. He held up one finger. Magic gathered and erupted in flames. The flames swirled around with the wind. The wind mage screamed and released the spell. He fell, and the fire died. Natsu looked back in the direction he came. Slow, he thought, laying down. Might as well take a nap. He didn't see the lullaby under Rigor's body or hear it laughing. Look, there he is, Lucy exclaimed. Cage glanced out the window. His eyes widened. Erigor-sama was defeated. Happy snored happily on Natsu's stomach. Is he unconscious? Gray asked, pointing at the dragon slayer. No, Natsu said, opening one eye. I was waiting for you all to get here. Gray snorted. You were probably exhausted from your fight. Natsu sat up. Look at yourself and say that again. Gray looked at his own cuts and bruises, then looked at Natsu with only a small bruise and some dust marks to show from his battle. He sputtered for some words to say, but couldn't think of any, so he turned and looked away from him. Urza shakily got out of the cart and looked at Natsu. Angry. You killed him, she screamed. Natsu was confused. You killed Erigor, didn't you? The others looked at the charred body further down the track. Lucy covered her mouth and Kageyama mouth agape, felt furry buildings in him. Natsu went to say something, but Gray smashed a hammer onto his head. Big mistake, the hammer shattered and Gray was thrown to the floor. Urza rushed to help but was kicked down. They glared at him but faltered when they saw his face. Fury in his eyes, a scowl on his face. He looked menacing. He's not dead, Natsu growled. Lucy shivered happily and landed comfortably on the boy's head. Natsu stood up straight and ran off in the direction of the master's meeting. Getting over the shock, Urza walked to the charred body but jolted when she saw Rigor's chest moving up and down evenly. Oh, she said. Gray. He looked at her. Urza sighed. We may owe Natsu an apology. What? Gray asked. You mean he's alive? Lucy gasped in relief. Kageyama hadn't heard this and was still staring at his fallen master. We've been nothing but rude to him the whole trip. The least we could do is acknowledge our mistake of accusing him, Urza yelled. The cart suddenly barreled forward, nearly squishing Lucy. I'm gonna kill that pink head and then your filthy guild masters. The shadow hand grabbed the lullaby and the cart sped off towards the clover. Night time. I hate them. Happy sat sadly next to Natsu. I hate them. Hello, young man. Cage jumped and turned to Makarova behind him. You should get back to the hospital, the old man said kindly. Kageyama stuttered. Oh, but I came to play a song for the guild masters. Makarov raised an eyebrow, then sighed. Well, let me hear it. Cage smirked. I win, thinking he was prepared to play the flute. Then he thought back to how kind his light mages had been and he began to feel bad. There he is, Lucy whispered to the three, prepared to dash out, but Bob of Blue Pegasus stopped them. Just wait a moment, he said sweetly. He winked at Gray, making the ice mage feel uncomfortable. What are you waiting for? Just to play the song? Cage pressed his lips on the flute. Everything will change after this, he thought. Nothing will change, Makarov said, somehow reading his mind. You won't earn your rights back, and depending on that flute will make you seem weak. You grow stronger around your nakama. Cage dropped the flute and fell to his knees. I admit my loss. Lucy, Gray and Urza came running. Master, they yelled. They laughed and cheered until smoke started rising from the flute. Pitiful humans, I'll just devour you myself. With that the smokes materialized into a large wooden monster. I'll consume your souls. Who should I eat first? It looked over to some trees. How about you? Natsu flew out from the bushes and punched the lullaby hard in the face. It stumbled and Urza took this chance to slice the side of its neck. Lullaby shot some sort of beams at the guildmasters, but Gray created a shield to block it. Natsu leaned on a tree watching the rest of the fight. Natsu helped us, Urza yelled, delivering another blow. Happy fluttered beside him. I hate them, Natsu thought. You said that you don't need my help, so I won't help. Urza remember what she had said at the station. I'm sorry, Natsu, but please just help, she screamed. You don't need my help in any ways, he replied. Urza delivered one last attack, and the lullaby fell, converting back to its flute form. Wow, the guildmasters, said Makarov laughed. Aren't they just excellent guys? But Roak, the guildmasters' meeting place, had been destroyed. Makarov's Lucy, Urza and Gray began to sneak away. After them now they were running. Where's Natsu? Lucy painted. They looked over by the trees. No Natsu, he probably went back to the guild with Happy, Makarov concluded. Stop talking and run, Gray yelled, speeding up. Lucy lounged by the bar talking with Levy, and of course Jed and Droy stood protectively behind her. Earlier that day Urza had challenged Natsu to a fight, but he ignored her. Not surprising really, now he sat staring out the window with a hatful look in his eyes. Suddenly the doors burst open and a frog person came in. Lucy's eyes twitched. If that thing talks. The frog looked at Natsu and froze. The purge survivor, it thought. The messenger cleared its esophagus for damage to property and 11 other crimes from the terrorist incident yesterday. Urza Scarlet will now be put under arrest. The guild was quiet. Everyone seemed sad. Except for Natsu. As usual, he hadn't made any notion that he cared when they took the red head away. Makarov signed Natsu. He asked. Said Mage turned. Why don't you go after her? Natsu stared at Makarov's smiling face as he deadpanned. Makarov looked up, putting a hand to his chin. In a fake thought he said, or you could help Mira at the bar. He looked down again, but Natsu was already gone. Urza walked along the corridors, a frog guard behind her. She looked up sharply and froze. Segrain, she said, surprised. He looked up and smirked at her. The frog bowed. Long time no see, Urza. No need for such a face, this is only a hologram, Segrain said, waving his hand through his body to demonstrate. You prepared this, didn't you? Urza growled. Segrain chuckled. Oh no, I spoke on the behalf of your guild, but the geezers in there didn't want to be blamed, so you're their scapegoat, the blue-haired man said. Shut up, Urza said through gritted teeth. You wonder why I'm here, aren't you? Well, he whispered in her ear, don't talk about that, it's for our own good. Then he disappeared. The frog looked up shakily. You know really important people. It said that man is evil. Urza replied that. The frog tilted its head. Should we really have sent Natsu? Happy wondered he might try to kill somebody. Urza Scarlet, one man said, from the terrorist attack the other day, you are suspected to have destroyed Ashibana Station, the Canyon Railroad, and an entire mansion in Clover. Witnesses say it was a redeed in armor and… The hell is this? The council looked over to Natsu standing over in a corner. Is this really more important than the guildmasters' lives? He asked, raising an eyebrow. Silence. He decided to destroy the door, take them to jail. What's wrong with you? Urza yelled. I could have gone home right after this if you hadn't come here. Natsu ignored her and stared at the moon. She sighed, but I thank you, she said, smiling. He looked at her. Makarov forced me to come here, he said. Call him master. Urza yelled, agitated again. The two argued when outside in the hallway Segrain stood. Natsu Dragneel, I've found you. Natsu stretched out on the floor of the guild. Freedom is too good, he thought, falling asleep. Then his eyes shot open and he looked around. He found Happiness and put the cat on a pillow. Happy was swaying back and forth until he fell asleep. Mage after mage was now collapsing, save Master and Natsu. The cloaked figure wielding a staff walked towards the mission board. Mistygun, Makarov said, opening an eye. Mistygun placed a mission request in front of the old man and headed out the door. 5, 4, 3. He glanced at Natsu and the stared back. 2, 1. Mistygun disappeared and everyone woke up. Ah, that guy, I can't stand him, a random mage yelled. That punk, his magic is too strong. Lucy looked around. Who is Mistygun? She asked Loki to appear next to her. He's one of the guild's strongest members. Loki then ran quickly to another table. He hates to be seen, so when he comes he puts everyone to sleep. Only the master knows his face, and only Pinky over there is able to stay awake, Gray explained to her. A chuckle came from the second floor. Oh, and him too. Happy fluttered over and Natsu lay back down. You weaklings aren't worth a conversation, the blonde man said. Then he disappeared in a flash of lightning. Ugh, that Laxus Mirror groaned. Lucy looked at Natsu. He was staring at the ceiling, simply staring at the ceiling. What's up with him, she thought. Natsu got up from the floor, grabbed a chair and sat by the window. Haku, he thought sadly. He attempted to take a nap when Makarov called him over. Natsu rolled his eyes but went over to the old man. Makarov whispered something into his ear. Natsu groaned, called Happy and left. What was that all about? Gray thought to himself. Later that night. Lucy hummed walking along the bank to her apartment. She thought back to what Mira told her. Only S-class mages can use the missions upstairs. Lucy sighed. Oh well, I'll get there someday. Hahaha, no you won't. Why did I even type that there, hahaha. She reached her apartment and froze. On the steps sat Natsu, head in hand leaning against the wall, eyes closed. She remembered what Levi had told her the day she joined Fairy Tail. She marched up to him, arms folded. "Hey," she yelled. He opened his eyes and yawned. "Good, you're here. Look, the old man wants me to take you on a mission, so here." She snatched it from his hand. Natsu raised an eyebrow and looked up. Lucy looked over the parchment. She yelled, "Why you Tita took this?" She started rambling, motioning to the paper multiple times. The fish smacked her in the face. "Thanks. Happy I didn't know when she would shut up." Natsu said. "I," the cat responded. Lucy turned to them, paper scrunched up in hand. "I'm not going," she screamed. "Fine," Natsu said. "You won't get your key and I won't get my money, but who cares, I hate you anyways." He got up to walk away, but Lucy suddenly grabbed his arm, pressing her boobs purposely around it. She looked up with large puppy dog eyes. Now Salamander," she said seductively, "we can work this out. Let's just go on the mission, get the key, come back, and not tell anyone." Natsu rolled his eyes unaffected. "That was the original plan, stupid." Lucy growled at him. "Meet me at the dock tomorrow, or I'll burn your house down." Lucy's mouth hung open. "Villain," she yelled as he left. "God, what's wrong with him?" She walked back into her house. "Huh, but where'd Happy go?" "You know what, I don't care. That cat hit me with a fish." Lucy groaned. "What are we going to do?" Sailor after sailor refused to take the two to Galleones land where the mission was to take place. "I told you we could swim." Natsu said. "I happily agreed." "Aren't you afraid of sharks?" one sailor asked. "No," Natsu replied dully. "Natsu," said the mage. Turned around. Urza and Gray were racing towards him with weapons in hand. He covered his hands in fire and took a stance. The sailor who was just speaking to them looked over. "Magic. Are you people mages? Are you here to stop the curse? If so, please get in." Natsu suddenly hopped in, dragging Lucy and Gray with him. Urza quickly followed. And as they took off, Natsu leaped into the water. Gray growled, then turned to the sailor. "Anyway, how come you agreed to take us?" The man was silent for a while, then he answered, "My name is Bobo. I ran away from that cursed island long ago." Happy looked away from Natsu. "What curse is it?" the cat asked. Bobo was silent. "Great misfortune will come to you if you enter that island." He removed his cloak and revealed his arm. It was black with long mangled claws. "It's a demonic curse." Urza, Gray, Happy, and Lucy gasped. "Well, this just became interesting," Natsu said, lifting his head from the water. "Shut up, nobody asked for your opinion," Urza screamed. Bobo looked at them confused. "I hope you people can really get rid of this curse." Bobo placed the cloak back around his arm. "There it is," he said. The four on the boat looked forward. When they turned back around, the man was gone. How where did he go?" Lucy asked. "Maybe he fell," Urza said, looking at the water. Happy dived into the ocean and looked around. "I don't see him," he said once he resurfaced. "Happy," Natsu said, holding onto the boat. The cat looked at him. "You better fly." Happy took off into the air just as a humongous wave hit. They were swirled around, screaming all the way. Eventually Natsu let go and the rest were dragged under. They woke in the morning on the beach. "Is everyone okay?" Lucy asked. Gray and Urza groaned. Happy looked around. "Where's Natsu?" he asked. "Forget about him, Happy. We need to find the village." Happy frowned. "I'm fine, Happy." The cat whipped around. "Natsu," he yelled. Natsu smiled slightly. Yeah, but could you get this shark tooth out of my back? It really itches." The rest of the team expected to see a small white shard, but they were shocked. Lodged in the other mage's back was a foot-long spear, not a real spear, hanging out from his spinal cord. Happy struggled to pull it out, then tossed it into the ocean. Natsu stretched and let go, he said, walking off onto a path. The group eventually reached a large door made from trees. On it read, "Keep out. Open up if you don't want to die," Natsu yelled. He ducked Urza's fist. Why would you say that?" Lucy asked. Natsu looked up. Two men were standing there, spears in hand. "State your business," one said, glaring at Natsu. Urza brought up her formal front and stated, "We are here to rid you of your curse. We come from the guild Fairy Tail." The men looked at her for a moment. "Showing your guild marks," they said simultaneously. Happy turned around and lifted up his bandana. Gray lifted his shirt. Urza tilted to the side and removed part of her armor. Lucy raised her hand, but Natsu had disappeared. "The guards looked around where your pink-haired friend was," the other asked nervously. "Open the gate," someone yelled. The guards began to sweat and the team walked into the village and sweat dropped. There in the center of the collection of people was Natsu, acting as if he had not just infiltrated a whole other civilization. Seriously, what's wrong with him, they thought, not happy. Natsu stared at the moon. Purple and ominous, idiots, he thought. We don't need to destroy the damn moon. Natsu looked back at his sleeping teammates. He got up and walked out. He ended up at an enclosed space in the corner of the village. He made a small fire in his hand, but unlike normal flames, these were black. He placed the strange flame on the grass. In a perfect circle it all died. Turning brown, shriveling, the fire give off a strange light somehow. It comforted Natsu, having the flames of the apocalypse dragon. It made him feel whole. Morning soon came. Lucy, Gray, Natsu, and Happy went out to find some way to lift the curse, leaving Urza behind to gather more information. They walked along in silence. So what exactly are we looking for? She says. Gray and Natsu turns around to see Lucy inside her clock spirit. Natsu snorted at her laziness and Gray sweat dropped. Lucy saw the look Natsu was giving her. She says. Horglum mimics Lucy. The curse could affect us at any time, she says. Natsu turned back around. So you saved yourself, he says, walking forward. Lucy looked down thinking about what he said while Gray, growling, shut up, the ice mage, yelled. Lucy doesn't have the stamina we do, just cut her some slack. Lucy is a bitch, no offense to Lucy lovers. Natsu ignored him, then turned to the side. Gray and Lucy turned as well. There towering over them was a gigantic raid in a maid's outfit. It spit gas out from its mouth. Gah, Gray yelled, covering his nose. The smoke reached Lucy and Horglum fell over. Run, Gray yelled, sprinting off. Lucy followed behind. Suddenly Natsu fell from above and sprinted off at his fastest speed. He stopped, turned around, sprinted back, leaping into the air and kicking the rat hard in its face. Gray and Lucy stopped and watched the monstrous creature fall. Happy landed on Natsu's head. Said mage covered his nose and started to breathe through his mouth. The hell was that, he thought to himself. He looked at the other two. There's a temple up ahead, we might find clues there. Lucy nodded and Gray scowled but went along with it. Oh, if only they had known. Lucy painted leaning on a wall in the temple. Gray inspected some markings on the wall and Natsu was looking around, tapping the floor with his foot. This island was originally called Moonisland and Gray randomly started. Moon Island, moon curse, moon markings. This seems suspicious, Lucy responded, catching her breath. Happy held up a bone. Natsu looked. He exclaimed, don't eat that, Natsu said simply. This place doesn't seem sturdy at all. Gray ignored him. Lucy's eye twitched well and stopped stomping on the ground and Natsu stomped on the ground extremely hard and broke the floor. You idiot. Gray and Lucy yelled, simultaneously falling down into the hole, Natsu and happily beside them. Happy, can't you damn it, I told you not to eat that. Natsu said loudly to the choking cat above him. Natsu jumped up from the rubble and jumped over happily, jamming his hand down the cat's throat to remove the bone he had swallowed. Lucy rubbed her head, glaring at the pink-haired mage. Where are we? She groaned. Gray crawled out from a block, some sort of cavern, he said, looking up. Natsu walked forward. Oh? He said. What is it? Gray growled. Natsu walked forward some more, looking upwards. Gray followed. Lucy gaped at the scene in front of her. Encased in ice was a large monster. Its arms and legs were long and wide, while its body and head were relatively small. Deliora, Gray yelled. Natsu glanced back at him. He knows something. Obviously impossible. How is it here? Gray continued to rant. Gray, calm down, Lucy said. Gray happily mumbled. Gray looked down, then glared at it. Deliora said he was the devil of misfortune and disaster. Natsu looked up his heir of creation. He wondered. He heard some voices off to the side and pushed the others over to the rocks, covering their mouths so they wouldn't make noise. A man with abnormally large eyebrows and a dog-like man came in. Mr. Eyebrows, as Natsu calls him, spoke. Is this where you say you heard voices? Huan, the dog man said. Mr. Eyebrows yawned. Daytime makes me sleepy, he said. Did you get any moon drip on you? The dog man turned to him. I didn't. He yelled, okay, I was just joking, idiot. Moon drip? Natsu pondered. The girl came in. She had curly pink hair held up in pigtails. Someone has harassed Angelica, she whined. You mean the rat? Dog man deadpanned. The girl pouted. She's not a rat, she's a mouse that gallops in darkness and love. Natsu almost snorted. Love? The avoidance of lanolin is something must be wrong with her, Lucy whispered. They don't appear to be affected by the curse, happily whispered back. There are intruder. Eyebrows spoken. Lucy thought they had heard them. We need to get rid of them. The girl said. We'll kill them, the dog yelled. Natsu's eyes narrowed, a vicious gleam in them. We shall see who kills who. The three left and Natsu and the others came out from hiding. They stood in silence for a while. Why did they bring Deliora here? Gray mumbled. It was supposed to be sealed. Natsu looked at him. Sealed? Gray shook his head. It was sealed in an iceberg on the northern continent. It's an immortal demon that penetrated the Isban area 10 years ago. Natsu narrowed his eyes. Gray continued. It's a devil that might teach her all, sealed at the risk of her life. Lucy's mouth fell agape while Natsu stood unaffected. Gray clenched his fist. Whoever those people are working for, I won't let them get away with disgracing All's name again. There was silence. Can this be the cause of the curse? Lucy asked. Gray nodded. Probably. Natsu looked up. We could always try to finish it ourselves. As those words left his mouth, Gray whipped around to punch him, but Natsu dodged effortlessly. Don't you even try. Gray yelled that if that ice melts and Deliora starts moving, no one would be able to stop it. Natsu looked at him blankly. Would the ice melt that easily? Gray froze for a moment, then looked down, and he growled. Old cased ice shell covering Deliora in unmeltable ice, so if they know that they can't melt it, why did they bring it here? That girl was talking about the moon. We should wait here until it comes out, Natsu interjected. They stared at him happy laid on the floor. Sure Lucy said slowly. Gray sat down on a rock by the ice without a word. He thought. He stared at the ice as memories with his teacher flooded his mind. Lucy sighed. This is boring. Then she got in at the open gate to the lyre, a lady with wings and a harp poofed into existence. Kaya, I haven't seen you in ages, Lucy. Lyra, you let another weirdo happy, mumbled. Natsu glanced at them. What do you want me to sing for you today, Lucy? Lyra asked. Anything's fine, Lucy answered. Lyra began her song. It was soothing, calm and sweet, happy, and Lucy swayed to it. Gray and began to shake, but Natsu stood against the wall expressing nothing. A tear slid down Gray's cheek. Natsu's nose twitched. Salt. Oh, he's crying, Natsu thought. Lyra, sing something more cheerful. Lucy yelled. Yeah, you should have said so, she yelled. You know what, just hush. What if somebody comes down here? Soon everyone was asleep except for Gray. He sat silently, hands on his face, just sitting. A soft rumbling filled the cavern, then it intensified. Lucy Gray and happily awoke to the sight of a purple light coming through the ceiling and Natsu standing in front of it. Natsu looked up as the ceiling opened, allowing more light in. Purple moonlight, Gray yelled. What is happening? Lucy screeched. The ceiling opened completely and a blinding light filtered through. The beam struck down onto Deliora. We need to find where the light is coming from, Gray ordered, gesturing to the staircase. They climbed. The men entered the temple again. The light is coming down the ceiling and into the floor. They climb some more steps and reach the top. Men wearing strange robes stand around a circle where the moonlight is being concentrated. There are mumbling strange words that Natsu doesn't understand. They're exposing Deliora to this light, but why, Lucy asks. Lyra suddenly appears next to her. It's a spell called Moon Drip, she begins. Only this spell can melt the ice on that demon. The curse on this island is most definitely because of it. Gray grits his teeth. They don't know how gruesome Deliora is. Natsu prepared to jump out and attack the men in robes, but just then a man wearing an ugly demon-like mask comes along. Mr. Eyebrows and Dog behind him. The girl somewhat materializes from nowhere and speaks. Riaidi-sama, I'm sorry, but intruders were here today, but we let them escape. Riaidi does not seem concerned about Sherry. He says, when will Deliora be revived? Today or tomorrow? The dog man growls. Which is it? He yells. The dog is ignored, only the village has humans destroy it. Natsu scowls slightly. I don't like messes, but Riaidi trails off. Gray shudders. That voice please tells me it's a lie. Natsu leaps from their hiding spot. We won't allow you to continue, he says coolly. That mark, they're from the fairy tale. Sherry exclaims. Riaidi turns his head slightly to look at her. What are you waiting to destroy the village? Natsu narrows his eyes. And why must you do that? Riaidi held out a fist. All who oppose our plans are our enemies, was his simple reply. Images of a small town being destroyed and people being brutally murdered filled his mind. He glared at the man in front of him. That's your reason, he stated, more than questioned. Gray suddenly ran towards Riaidi, fist in hand. Stop this useless ritual. He yelled, placing his hands on the ground. Ice spiked up from the earth. Riaidi fed and placed a single hand down, countering the attack. The two ice masses shattered. Gray glared, while Riaidi kept his calm facade. Leon, do you know what you're doing? Gray growled behind gritted teeth. He knows this person. Natsu thought. Leon smiled. Foo, it's been a long time, Gray. Happy, and Lucy's jaws dropped. Yeah? They yelled. What are you doing? Gray repeated. Leon ignored the question. Is it a coincidence that you're here? Well, it doesn't matter. He turned back to Sherry and the other two. Go, I can take care of myself. Yes sir. On. Natsu leaped forward to stop them. No, Natsu, stayed back. Gray yelled. Natsu was suddenly encased in ice. Happy. Gray shouted. The cat responded by lifting Lucy into the air. Yeah, we're leaving, Natsu? She asked, more confused than worried. Why do you care? He questioned back. She stayed silent, thinking about her actions a second time that day. The ice shard surrounding Natsu smoothed out and he was now encased in a frozen ball. He looked down at himself. I look ridiculous, he thought, then he melted it and wiped the excess water. He glanced at Gray, whose mouth was hanging open, and Leon, who also looked surprised. I'll leave you here then, he said, then jumped down the side of the cliff. Heading over the shock, Gray turned to Leon with renewed anger. You know all gave her life to seal Deliora, so why are you trying to destroy what she left us? Leon removed his mask. Stop trying to kid yourself, Gray, you killed Elle. After all, Gray clenched his fist, and Leon continued, how could you live like that? His white hair waved in the wind. Sweat rolled down Gray's face. You killed Elle, echoed in his brain. Leon glared at Gray. It's presumptuous to even mention your name. Great fancy words, just what we need. A large flower of ice flew at the raven-haired mage, knocking him backwards onto a stone. Leon? The asked said man scoffed. What, feeling so guilty you can't even counterattack? If so, then I ask for you not to get in the way of reviving Deliora, and now we have the fancy dialogue. Gah. Gray looked down, then lifted his head to stare Leon in the eye. I won't let you, Leon smirked. That's the spirit, let's have a match. It's been a while. He held up one hand. Ice make eagle birds materialized and flew towards Grey. Ice make shield, he yelled. The birds flew around it and crashed around Grey. Phew, did you forget my ice shifts around? Grey leaped from the entourage. He rolled away. Ice make hammer. A large hammer appeared above Leon. He held up two fingers. Ice make ape. The ice mammal blocked the attack. You're pathetic, Leon sneered. You still use two hands for molding magic. Grey narrowed his eyes. It's all's teachings. One-handed magic is incomplete and unbalanced. Leon stared him down. I'm special. I've surpassed all's teachings long ago. Grey clenched his fist. Don't think so highly of yourself. Leon raised an eyebrow. Were you even able to hit me once? Greyched put a hand and fist together, then both hands on the ground. Ice geyser stalagmites of ice erupted from the stone, and the onlooking worshippers ran away as it shattered. Leon raised his hand. Once again it erupted in a bright light, making the shattered ice around him sparkle. Though our paths differ, time has been frozen and I'm still better than you. A giant ice dragon flipped Grey into the air and he crashed into the ground. Leon now spoke with anger. My goal was to surpass all, but you ruined that goal. Now the only way to surpass all is to defeat Deliora. Grey's eyes widened. Are you insane? You have no idea how dangerous Deliora is. It's impossible. Leon grit his teeth. Shards of ice erupted around Grey's body. Don't impossible me, Leon growled. Don't say you've forgotten you challenged Deliora, and that's why I died. Now you vanish, you die. Grey woke to seeing a shadowed figure crouched next to him. It was Natsu, simply staring at him. Grey blinked. Natsu, why are you here? The rose-haired mage didn't answer, but simply lifted the ice mage over his shoulder and began his trek back over the hill. Where's Leon? Grey asked. I don't know, Natsu answered curtly. What does that mean? Natsu. Grey continued, I can't blame you for taking this mission. Natsu glanced back at him. Tears began to fall down Grey's face, mixing with blood. I really can't. Don't feel bad just because you lost. Grey was surprised to hear Natsu's answer. They raised an eyebrow. Yeah, because you've lost a battle before. Natsu snorted slightly. You'd be surprised at how many times I've been ambushed by a group of S-class mages and end up flying off a cliff. Grey's eyes widened. You mean those times when we wouldn't see you for weeks? Natsu finished for him. I was probably stranded in a forest, cave, or even the ocean. Grey was silent for a while, but didn't you have happy? Natsu sighed. He was talking too much. I sent him home with money for food and told him not to say anything. Grey stared at the ground. All those weeks alone and injured must have been hell. He remembered he was even missing when they were still 12. What had happened and why was he ambushed repeatedly? And then all the others did was groan at his return, almost as if they had wanted him to die. What had it been like for Happy? I see, Urza said after Lucy finished explaining the situation. Do you have a plan? She asked. Lucy beamed yes. Lucy was about to explain her plan when the mayor came forward. What's going on? He asked. Lucy turned to him while Urza searched for Natsu and Grey. There are some people up by the temples that have been causing your curse problem. They are coming to destroy the village and we need to stop them. The mayor panicked. No. I didn't ask for this. Destroy the moon. Some others dragged him away. Don't mind him, one said. He hasn't been the same since his son died. The mayor continued to yell. Leave it to us and we'll fix this, Lucy said. Minutes later. I have finished preparation, Princess Virgo said. Lucy smiled. Thanks, you always do things quickly. Virgo tilted her head. Will you punish me? Lucy sighed. Happy stared at her. You're an idiot, he deadpanned. Lucy deflated. Why would you say that? Happy sighed. Because nobody would fall for that trick. She huffed. It's the perfect pitfall. If they are going to destroy the village they have to come through the entrance right. When they do they'll fall into the hole. Happy shook his head. Only a retard could fall for that. The others agreed. Just wait and see, she growled. Someone is coming. A guard yelled. Open the gate, Urza answered, also skeptical about the plan. As the gate rose, Lucy became excited to prove that her plan would work, but gate to see Natsu come through, followed by Grey supporting himself on a stick. Natsu stopped at the grass-covered hole and looked up seriously. He said, no one would fall for Thaw. Grey fell in. Oh, I stand corrected. Natsu peered at Grey laying unconscious in the trap. You should get him out of there. Lucy pouted. No, she said, let's cover the hole. Natsu rolled his eyes and pointed upwards. They followed with their eyes. Comical tears fell from Lucy's eyes as they all stared at the giant rat carrying a large bucket filled with green slim. Oh good, the mages are here as well, Sherry said. Ooh, on a large blob of the slim fell down towards Lucy. She held out her hand. Slim. Before it touched her, Urza yanked her back. It spilled over a patch of weeds and melted the whole thing down to a shallow hole. Panic spread through the crowd. If they spill that, one man said, the whole village will be destroyed. Well, be killed. Just as those words were heard, the bucket tipped and the slim rained down on the people below. The slime fell at an alarming rate. Natsu said. Everyone to the center of the village. He yelled. The others complied, standing directly under the acidic sheet of green poison. Natsu breathed out a giant column of fire, disintegrating enough of it to keep the citizens alive. Unfortunately, the mayor had positioned himself by his son's grave in the path of the slim. Mayor, the people yelled as the slim engulfed the spot he was sitting in. Luckily, Virgo came up moments later carrying the shocked man. The mayor looked at the half-melted grave in anguish, then his eyes widened when the man with large eyebrows kicked the remaining rock from its spot. Natsu thought about the grave he made for Lasana and his eyes darkened. Sherry huffed, "For pity's sake, we were going to give you an instant death. I guess there will be lots of blood now." Natsu snorted, "And what makes you so sure it will be ours or the citizens?" Sherry laughed. "You mages are far too weak to stop us, even if your numbers are greater." Urza raised an eyebrow. "You do not know our strengths, so how can you possibly propose that?" Lucy snickered slightly when Sherry's face turned red. The citizens began to run the opposite way, carrying the still unconscious Grey and enraged mayor. "Angelica," Sherry said. "Chew." The rat picked up Sherry and flew at amazing speeds past Natsu, who made no motion to stop them. They were high in the sky by the time Lucy realized that she grabbed the rodent's foot. "Idiot," Natsu mumbled. Lucy began to hit the rat's foot. When she got no response, she began to tickle it. The rat started laughing and stopped spinning its tail, and all three fell. Natsu watched until the giant mammal crashed. "She is so stupid," he said. "Sherry will be angry." Urza eyed the steadily. "I think you can handle this, Natsu. Will go and assist Lucy." Urza turned and ran to where the rat had fallen, leaving Natsu. Happy chased after her, picking her up and flying full speed to where he could see action. "Wow, you're lighter than Lucy," Natsu scoffed and turned to his opponents. He easily rushed forward and knocked down the dog. Easy to knock over, but he instantly got back up. Recovers quickly. He blew a steady but weak compared to his other roar, breath of fire at Mr. Eyebrows, but the flames were somehow dismissed. The Eyebrows smirked. "I'm Yuuka, and that is Toby. You must have heard of Lamiaga." Natsu shot streams of fire from his hands at both of them. "Listen when I'm talking to you, bastard," Yuuka growled. "I don't care," Natsu said. "My objective right now is to make you suffer. Be grateful that I can't kill you, meh." Yuuka grit his teeth. "Stay out of this, Toby. I'll take care of him." Yuuka took a stance, then swung his arm at Natsu. "Surge," he said, and a sword of field flew at the fire mage. He dodged, Yuuka swung again, and Natsu dodged again, each attack leaving indentions on the ground. Yuuka began to explain his magic while forming spheres around his hand. Natsu wasn't listening. He only caught parts like nullifies, blocks magic, and all mages are powerless before me. The spheres rushed at Natsu. He put a hand up, it hit. Ounce the smoke cleared. Yuuka was shocked to see Natsu standing uninjured. "You're not a challenge," he said, rushing forward. Yuuka faced his palm towards Natsu. "Surge," he said. A circular shield formed. Natsu's fist went straight through it, inches from his opponent's face. But it began to contort violently. Yuuka laughed. "You fool, you'll be torn to pieces." Natsu made no notion that he was in pain. He clenched his fist and shot fire in a powerful stream from his elbow. Yuuka flinched at the size and heat of the flames. "Fights never end fast enough when I can't kill my opponents," Natsu seemed to complain. His fist rocketed through the barrier and sent Yuuka flying backwards, his shield dispelled. Yuuka bounced against a hard stone, whirling himself into a crater unconscious. Natsu turned to Toby. "Are you just going to stand there looking like a fish, or are you going to fight?" A vein popped on Toby's head. "You won't defeat me so quickly. I'm stronger than Yuuka." Natsu rolled his eyes. "Somehow I doubt that." Toby growled. "Paralysis nails." Mega jellyfish. Toby's nails grew and turned green. "Paralysis, really? That's the best you got?" Toby blinked at him. "How did you know I used paralysis magic?" Natsu sighed. "This guy is dumber than Lucy." Toby slashed at him. "If these touch you, you'll be electrocuted, paralyzed, and then all that awaits is death." Natsu dodged every slash. She raised an eyebrow. "You have something on your forehead." Toby touched his face. He collapsed. "Dumbus." He glanced at Bobo's grave. "The least I could do is make a new one." Lucy got up from her fall. She luckily landed on the rodent. "I think it's dead." She heard sobbing from above. Sherry glared at her, tears running heavily down her face. "Look at what you've done, girly. Riide-sama won't have confidence in me anymore. I won't be loved, and now Angelica won't forgive you." She thrust two hands out. "Wood doll." Lucy's jaw dropped when a large tree came to life and attacked her. The upturned earth shot her sideways. "Open gate of the bull." Taurus, a menacing bull, poofed into existence. He slashed down the tree with a moo. Sherry gasped. "Stellar spirits." Hearts filled the cow's eyes. "Lucy-san, your body moves so hotly, making your spirit say that is rather cruel," Sherry said. "I don't want him to," Lucy argued. Sherry smiled as Taurus rushed at her. "You are rather unfortunate to meet with me though." The spirit suddenly turned and swung at Lucy, who fell back to, pitifully, dodge. Taurus, what are you doing?" He grasped her neck and pinned her. She choked. "Lucy-san, I can't control myself," he growled. Sherry laughed. "I use doll play magic. I can control anything non-living, but even stellar spirits, since they're not human." Sherry giggled. Taurus, try stripping her. The bull ripped part of Lucy's shirt, a perverted smile on his face. "Got Taurus, are you even being controlled?" Close gate of the bull." Lucy twisted and pulled to get her spirit of all in vain. Sherry held her hand out. You can't close the gate one-swordedly, can you? Fairy tale mages are only this strong, aren't they? Lucy frowned. Closed door of the bull. The bull disappeared. Please, I could have done that. Probably didn't judge me. Sherry's mouth fell open. Lucy blinked. I've done it. I forced gate closer. She stood with a smirk. Now what did you say about fairy tale? Open dog of the lesser, Plu. Pew, and the doggish creature puffed into existence. It ran towards Sherry, who instantly controlled him. Plu ran back and began to attack Lucy, yelling pew in the whole time. Sherry gaped at the ineffectiveness of the small spirit. Lucy lashed her whip at the women who dodged. TCH worthless spirit. Plu was released and Sherry created a rock doll instead. Lucy began to sweat rocks. The monstrosity attacked her and she ran from it but tripped. She noticed the ocean a few feet away and reached for Aquarius. But she can't break rocks and will sweep me up too, she thought, but the smiled. Open door to the water bearer Aquarius. The beautiful mermaid burst from the water. Unfortunately, with her attitude, she and Lucy got into an argument, and that's why you'll never get a boyfriend, Aquarius said. Lucy yelled. I'll play. Puppeteer, Sherry said with a laugh. Aquarius obliterator. The mermaid scowled. I don't need you to tell me that. Lucy was swept up in a current and Sherry began to snicker until she was swept up as well. Kai, what is this? The mage yelled as she and Lucy swirled around dramatically. Idiots, Aquarius said in a soft tone before she disappeared. Both Sherry and Lucy staggered around with swirls in their eyes. They began a pitiful catfight until Lucy's arm hit her enemy upside her head, knocking the other mage down. In the name of love, avenge me, Angelica. The rat, how it didn't die, it leaped from the forest and was about to land stomach down on Lucy. The rat fell comically to the side from a slash of Ezra's sword. The red-haired sighed. Are you alright? She asked. Lucy smiled. Yeah, but we should be getting back. Urza nodded in agreement and headed off, happy flying above them. Natsu sat as his usual spot by the guild's window, staring sadly at the snow. It was a day before Christmas Eve and everyone was already celebrating. Beer was replaced with eggnog and the bar had lovely green tresses. I have no idea what that is on it. Makarov was dressed in a Santa costume and Mira Jane as an elf. I still think Elfman should be an elf. It would be funny considering his name. Makarov snorted in his drunken haze. You want an Atha elf? PHFFT, make Natsu your goddamn elf. As if somebody had pressed pause, the whole guild went silent. Natsu made no notion that he heard but turned to see everyone staring at him. He wouldn't make a good elf, one member said indignantly. Natsu exhaled heavily and turned back to the window. Not noticing the tension, Makarov laughed. Oh, that reminds me, I got everyone tickets to the mountain resort, so we'll be leaving at noon tomorrow. Forgetting the previous situation, everyone erupted in thanks. Natsu got up and left, but Happy stayed behind. It's my gift to you brats, now let's party. The activities exploded again, and only Mira had seen the pink-haired mage leave. She huffed rude. Natsu walked through the streets kicking at the snow. It's almost her birthday, he thought. He stopped walking and looked at the sky. Haku. He continued to walk until he entered the woods and to a clearing. In the center was a single cherry blossom tree. Surprisingly, it still had all its petals. He walked over and sat beneath it, staring at the sheet of white before him. She would hate how I've changed, he thought humorously. Memories of a sweet, energetic pink-haired girl filled his mind. He flinched, remembering her death. Haku, my little rotten little sister. You'd always get mad when I said that. He relaxed against the tree and continued to watch the snowfall until he fell asleep. Happy burst into the guild in a mild panic. Master. Natsu didn't come home last night. Have you seen him? It was 10:48. Members were preparing for departure in 1 hour 15 minutes. About Makarov, who was now sober, frowned. No, he hasn't come by. I'm sure he'll show up. As soon as those words left his mouth, Natsu came through the doors. He explained to Happy what happened and gave the cat some expensive sushi. 5 carriages arrived at 11:58 and they all took off with Natsu running by the side. They traveled for about 6 hours, occasionally passing around food, though none was offered to Natsu. They sped up a mountain when the already heavy storm turned into a blizzard and Natsu disappeared, though no one noticed. The sun began to set when they arrived and the air was freezing. When they arrived at the winter resort, Natsu was already there with some hot chocolate in his hand. Natsu? How did you get here so fast? Natsu took a sip of his drink that was somehow bubbling viciously. I fell off the side of the cliff and had to climb back up and ended up here. Happy frowned. You okay? Natsu nodded and continued to down his drink. The other guild members ignored him and Makarov had somehow gotten drunk again, so he didn't notice. The guild members explored the grounds, playing, fighting and drinking. There were multiple cabins positioned in a large circle expanding about 380 feet. In the center of the circle was a large dining hall. By 9 everyone was famished. They migrated to the dining hall, followed by some other random people that took extra rooms at the resort. When they entered the building, they saw Natsu there at the center by a gigantic tree, organizing different colored boxes. He noticed them but said nothing. He straightened one last box, then sat down. There were seating cards placed strategically so that you sat with the people you went on missions the most with. Gray groaned a bit when he was placed next to Natsu. Said mage had his head in his hand, obviously depressed about something, but nobody paid any mind. Maids and butlers came out with appetizers, bread cut into the shape of fern trees, and some oil mixed with herbs to dip it in. Happy was given fish instead of bread, which he chose to brag about. Conversation filled the room. Urza and Lucy talked about some girl things, but Natsu stayed silent. Of course Gray had to be at the edge of the table, so feeling awkward, he attempted to start a conversation, so fake coughing something wrong. He settled for a question. Natsu sighed, glanced him, then went back to staring at the wall. Why do you care, he said dully. The vein popped up on Gray's head. What's your problem? I'm just trying to start a conversation. His yell attracted attention from some others sitting near them. Natsu turned in his seat to look at him. The only reason you're trying to talk to me is because you can't speak with anyone else. Gray knew that was true, but didn't admit it out loud. He growled and was about to speak again when the maids brought out the entrees. Filet mignon, cooked medium with a baked potato that was stuffed with bacon, drools on keyboard, sour cream and cheese, never mind too much stuff mixed together, though Happy received a raw fish instead of steak. Gray gawked at the meal and looked over at Natsu, who was wiping his mouth. How did he finish so fast? Gray wondered, glancing at the empty plate. He was about to dig in when soup was brought out, or fish chowder in Happy's case, with a wad of bread sticking out. Natsu finished that at amazing speeds as well, while most others were already full. Gray stuffed his face, determined not to lose in his imaginary eating contest. Lucy and Urza noticed this and raised an eyebrow. Finally dessert was brought out, a warm chocolate volcano cake with fudge lava, surrounded by a sea of whipped cream and ice cream. On another plate was a large chocolate chip cookie covered in hot fudge and sprinkles. Everyone practically drooled over what was in front of them. The lucky cat got cream, minced fish, and a crab cake. Gray glared at Natsu, preparing to win his made-up battle, only to face fault when he saw both plates empty and the fire mage drinking some hot chocolate contentedly. Natsu yawned and left as Gray rushed to beat the pink at speed, only to choke and have other mages laugh at him. Happy stayed behind for unknown reasons, but soon everyone was assigned a cabin and headed off to bed. Gray was not surprised that he had to stay with Urza and Lucy, but knew that the pink punk would also be in their cabin. He entered the dark wood room and groaned when he saw Natsu sleeping soundly on the bunk beds, on the top bunk for that matter. The girls said good night to him and walked through a door to the other side of the cabin. Gray glared venomously at the bottom bunk before climbing in and letting sleep consume him. Natsu got up early and left before anybody else. He walked off from the grounds and into the thick pine forest. He kept walking until he met a clearing. He sighed when he saw there was no tree in the center, but sad anyways. He laid back thinking of her and the others. Happy birthday at least, he said sadly. I wonder why our parents didn't name you Karisumasu or Kurisuma, maybe Kurisu if they were really lazy, but no, they named you Haku. He sighed, it suits you. He heard a horn blow in the distance. I should get back. He got up and ran towards the dining hall, arriving as normal with all the others. They were seated the same as yesterday and were served simple pancakes, eggs, and bacon. After the maid sang a Christmas song, they all received their presents. Everyone from the guild got one present from every single other member, leaving the random citizen speechless. Everyone had mountains of boxes except for Natsu. He had two decent-sized packages, one from Happy, the other from Makarov. He opened the cat's gift first to find a sealing book. He glanced at his blue companion, both sharing a secret. He thanked the feline and opened the other and blinked. Cole here raised an eyebrow, trying to see if the old man was somehow labeling him as evil or whatever, but caught nothing in his cheerful orbs. Natsu picked up a coal and bit into it. He swallowed and gave a forced smile to the guildmaster. Thanks, old man. The other members ripped open their gifts, leaving some for Urza to seal away. Lucy came across a relatively small package and opened it without seeing the giver. Her eyes sparkled. A new key, oh, and key polisher, she squealed. Who got me this? Whispers erupted, trying to find out who gave the girl such a thoughtful gift. Makarov coughed, grabbing attention. Natsu did, he said simply. They all looked for a gift with the Dragon Slayer's name on it and was shocked at what they received. Urza got a new and expensive armor. Gray got a special molding lacrima. You can transfer your magic to it and it will moldable like clay or something. Just think of something nice. Vegetter, I think, got dancing shoes. Levi a pen that writes in the air using light. Det got durable sneakers that are enhanced so the rubber won't melt or wear easily, and so on. You're welcome, Natsu said with a bit of sarcasm, then left with Happy. Makarov sighed. I'm very disappointed in you all. While outside, Natsu was cursing the day he decided to join Fairy Tail. I hate you all, why do I even pretend? Gray awoke to sunshine gleaming through the thin fabric of the tent he was currently housed in. Where am I? He asked himself tiredly. He opened the entrance flap and peered out. He walked out looking around confused. Oh, you're awake. A lady with short black hair and a rock-like arm smiled at him. We will be taking shelter in this storage area since the village was destroyed. Gray blinked destroyed. He thought confused, then he remembered what Lion had said to his lackeys. Lion Yao, you really did it. He felt pain from his injuries. Luckily the lady continued, thanks to Natsu-san no one was injured. And if you would like to see the others, they are over there. She pointed to a large tent to his left. Lucy, Urza, and Happy were there talking. Oh hey Gray, have you seen Natsu? Happy asked. Gray was going to snort but then remembered his conversation with the fire mage and simply shook his head. We need to find him now, Urza said with mild frustration. Lucy sighed. He beat Riidi's men and then vanished. There was silence. Don't tell me I think he did. Natsu stood in front of the large mountain. He glared at the entrance. Someone will witness hell today. Lion stared at Toby. Scandalous, he said. Are you the only one left? He got an ooh in response. These people are stronger than I thought, he pondered. An old man wearing a half mask and robe appeared behind Toby. Reviving Deliora will be more difficult now. Even though the moon's power will be maximized tonight, if anyone stops the ritual, then our little demon will be frozen forever. Lion etched, I should have dealt with this myself. After all, those weaklings can't defeat me. My ice blade has surpassed all. The old man smiled. And I shall fight as well using my lost magic. A sudden shaking startled them. What is this? Lion questioned. The ruins are falling apart. Toby exclaimed. The mountain suddenly tilted. Look down there. The old man pointed to a large hole. Lion and Toby looked down him. Toby yelled. It's harder to break things intentionally than by accident, Natsu stated to himself. Lion glared down at him. What is the meaning of this? He asked. Natsu huffed. With your precious fortress tilted, how will light shine down on Deliora? His face was shadowed, giving him an intimidating air. Hell is coming your way. Thanks for watching this video. If you really enjoy this video, like, subscribe, and comment down below, and turn on that bell notification. Don't forget to support and follow the Blackhatred for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story, link in the description. See you in the next video. Goodbye.